and welcome back to Ashley Main Makes. So today we are making Cashmerette Honeybourne dress from their new book, Ahead of the Curve. Now, I am very excited about this dress because not only is it cute as is, but also it is a simple 2-dart bodice that I'm hoping I can use as my bodice block. Now, I have tried for a while to get a decent bodice block, which is really a challenge in plus size. So I'm really excited about this. So along with the wealth of fitting information in this book, I will be walking you through my whole mock-up process in detail and a little bit of quick sewing at the end. So with all that being said, let's get started. All right, so we're back in the mock-up bathroom here with the bodice on already. I just cut it out as is based on the size chart for my measurements, and we're looking pretty good. Like, it's really definitely pretty close already. Got a couple issues in the front, but the back looks really quite good. It's laying relatively flat, which is what we like to see. So the first issue here is where this sleeve lands. Obviously you can see this sleeve head is sitting way off my shoulder and is like more on my upper arm. So this whole thing needs to be brought up quite a ways. You can kind of see where my bra strap is there. So this needs to come up really quite far. This is pretty typical for me for Cashmerette to have to narrow the shoulders, so this is not a shock to anyone. But yeah, I think otherwise the sleeve looks really quite good. It's got, like, I've got a good range of movement once that shoulder seam's kind of where it's supposed to be, and I think I've got enough ease in there. So that looks about right. The other issue we have, obviously, is where the bust darts land. So it's expecting my boob to be here, where my boob is actually like all the way up here. So this whole thing needs to shift up and forward. Kind of a good problem to have, I guess. But one thing with having the sleeve on, it's kind of like pulling the bodice back and forth. So I think I need to take this sleeve off and then evaluate these darts. All right, so we're back with it on inside out without the sleeve on it, and it's sitting a little bit better so you can tell what's going on. As you can see, you kind of do have that little bit of space around the arm here. And that is important to have a sleeve set into it. So there's a reason some bodices have sleeves and some of them don't. And having this little bit of space and wrinkling in here is fine because you need that to be able to move while having a sleeve on. Yeah, so overall looking pretty good. Waist is sitting where it should. The main thing is marking these dart points. You know, not all boobs are created equal, so that's a little bit of a game in and of itself, but probably about there and about there is the high point. So I'm probably gonna mark both just to compare and contrast. Doesn't have to be like bang bang on, but pretty close is good. Yeah, no, just uneven. They're boobs. What can we say? And then I'm just gonna check the shoulder point here. So we're probably looking at, you know, where you can kind of feel that bone in your shoulder. So not quite to my bra strap, but pretty close. Something like that looks about right. About there. That looks about right to me. You've got to remember that you're gonna have the weight of the skirt on here. So this whole thing is gonna be sitting like that once you've got the weight of the skirts all the way around, because that does play a factor in this. So you don't want to make it so tight that you can't have the skirt on here. This part I feel like should come sort of following the line of my bra here, where you can see where it's coming around. Something like that. And you have to remember that you're gonna have seam allowance, so if this is where I want my finish to be, I'm gonna need to go my 1/2 inch in this case out from that so that I have enough space to actually attach the sleeve back on. Pretty good for round one, you know, all things considered, especially considering like that last wrap dress I did, how much adjustment. I mean, I still had to make this same adjustment with bringing it up and in, so that, and the same shoulder adjustment. So I'm starting to slowly figure out what my standard adjustments are for Cashmerette. So that's useful to know. This moving of the bust point business though is really annoying. So, you know, I don't know, mixed bag. But yeah, I think we're good to move on. I can probably use the same mock-up. I'll just undo these darts and re-put them back in. as well as just trim this down to size. I don't think I have any adjustments in terms of making these shoulders more straight. I actually think they're pretty straight already, so that's cool. So other than that, those are my 2 adjustments. I think everything else is pretty good. So we're gonna move on to round 2. So going to do this adjustment, I've just gone and taken a trace of my bodice piece as it is. You could of course skip this step if you perhaps had printed off a couple copies of the bodice. I, for some reason, did not do that this time, which is slightly frustrating, but you know, it's helpful. So I just traced it out onto a bit of scrap trace paper here. And then I have unpicked my mock-up. So as you can see here, this was that bust point that I marked in the mirror. So I'm probably going to define that like a little bit better here with my marker. And the other thing, just to get an idea, I'm just going to measure how far apart the darts are on the original. So the original apex is right here, where the 2 lines intersect. Some patterns will mark this out, some won't, but you can see that's where that apex is. So that gives me a rough idea here. So it's about 1.25 inches, and then we've got, yeah, it's about 1.25 inches both ways. So I'm just gonna remember that. Then what I'm gonna do is use this as a reference. And this is my favorite way of doing this. There's a few different ways to do it, but I think this is the easiest way to understand the changes you made, is to unpick the whole thing. So I'm gonna take my mock-up and I'm gonna lay my trace copy over top now and just line it up as best you can. You know, your cutting's not gonna be perfect, but hopefully it's pretty close. Use my pattern weights here. These are just washers from the hardware store that I use a lot of the times just to hold things down, keep everything in place, especially helpful when you're doing stuff like this so you don't have to try and pin through your tissue. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my other color of marker here, and I'm just gonna mark that bust apex on my new copy. So any of the changes that you've pinned out on here, this is the time when you would do it. The other thing I'm gonna mark off here is where that shoulder point needs to be. So hopefully, so there's my 2 landmarks done. So that was really simple. This one doesn't have that many changes so far, so that's really good. This pattern is like not too far off. It's really helpful having the bust cups for sure. That makes a huge difference. It's like you can get a long way with grading plus bust cups. So what I'm gonna do now, pull my pattern back in and then compare it to my paper pattern. So what I'm gonna do is try and look for some landmarks. There are a whole bunch of different sizes of these darts here that are all the same size because this is all the same bust cup. So what I'm gonna do is just bring it down. Now this one is really close to the size 18, so I think that's pretty close. So I'm gonna call it the size 18. Now you can do this without a reference as well if your bust point is moved somewhere entirely different. I'm doing it like this so it's easy to transfer this back onto the skirt. This dart doesn't really move that much, but it is quite a bit of ways from where it needs to be. So what I'm gonna do, so I'm going to take my ruler here, and now this is where that 1.25 inches comes in. So I'm going to back it off 1.25 inches. Now I know this is probably going to be volume 1 of 2. So that means that we will probably make a second mock-up and refine what this spacing is, but this will give me a place to start. So this might not be the end all be all, you know, we might have to back these darts off more or bring them closer. This is all kind of dependent on your boob shape, so and your bra shape for that matter. So if you like wearing like more retro style bras, you know, you're gonna be closer to the point here, like the pointier your boob, the closer to this apex point you're gonna be. If you like really soft molded bras, you're probably gonna back this off a bit. So that's gonna be something that's very dependent on your bra and your fitting. At this point, as my like version 2, I'm just trying to get in the ballpark. So it's not the end of the world if this isn't bang on. All I'm gonna do for a starting point is I'm gonna mark the end of my dart legs here, and then I'm gonna take my ruler and just connect these 2 up. Now I'm just using this big pen so you can see what I'm doing, the different colors here. Something like that. I didn't have to add any more for fullness or add any more little darts. That would be something that you would see in this mock-up process as well. So if that happens to you, you can always incorporate any other little bits you take out into this larger dart, but that gives me a starting point. Also, this angle has changed a little bit. You can see it shifted slightly up. That's perfectly fine. I'm happy to leave that the way it is. If you really wanted, you could shift this whole dart up a little bit. For me, it's like sub 1/4 inch. I don't really care. And you could even, you know, have this angled however you want along here. You know, you could have a French dart or, you know, something else. So totally fine the way it is. I'm happy with that for a second round. So that's probably the dart I'm gonna go with. Third thing, I'm gonna deal with this shoulder seam here. So if this is where I actually want it to be, right here, along my shoulder, that's the final. So again, you need seam allowance. So what I'm gonna do is go 1/2 inch off that all the way along, something like that, and then it'll connect back up. So let's call it like here. So I'm gonna roll with that on both sides and we're gonna go from there. So we are back in the mock-up bathroom here. And honestly, we are really close. You know, I think if I wasn't being picky and I wasn't planning on using this as a mock-up block, this would be good enough as is in real fabric. Muslin is really unforgiving, so some of the little tweaks are more obvious, but otherwise, you know, we're really close. So there's only a couple of tweaks left that I want to make, one of which is, you can tell that I'm getting sort of a divot here where I've got like little points, and I think that's being caused by these lower darts here. You can sort of see like I can squish it down out of the way. So I think these darts, based on sort of trying to smooth it out, need to come down about 1/2 inch here. There, probably. That's what that looks like to me. Yeah, probably about that, because you can see where it kind of gets to the point where it's sitting smooth. So same thing, yeah, that looks about right on the other side as well. Again, totally depends on what bra you're wearing, so you want to be consistent with that. The shoulders look really quite good. I'm really glad I had marked out the curve as opposed to using the curve that was on the pattern. I think I made that mistake with my wrap dress, so I'll probably update that based on this. So, you know, like the more you know, the better you get at this, right? And I've got my, you can sort of see I've got my seam allowance marked out here. So that looks about right. You know, that comes to just my top of my shoulder cap there. I've marked out my neckline here. So this would have been the neckline closer to the size of my shoulder. And I actually think that looks much better, being a little bit lower. I'm never opposed to a little bit of a lower neckline. So I think I am going to bring that down a little bit. I think that'll look really nice. And then the only other thing that I wanted to change was, you can again see there's a slight ripple in the back darts there. So I think, like, yeah, when I stand up straight here, you can kind of see that it's trying to make a little bit of a longer dart in the back. So I'm gonna have to like fiddle around with that, like take this on and off, but I think I need about another inch in length in the back. My fullness is across my shoulders and that's a little bit higher. So yeah, so like minor tweaks of dart length, but otherwise I think the fit is really great. I don't want to take out this bit in the armhole. Normally if this was a sleeveless bodice, I probably would like pinch this out and add it to my bust dart, but because this has sleeves, you really do need that little bit of a gap there, and the sleeves were fitting fine before. So I think that's fine. I don't want to take that in any tighter because you want to be able to like go like this. Like I say, even if I didn't tweak the dart length, probably in real fabric you wouldn't even notice this. So it's mostly because I'm being picky, but otherwise I'm super happy with this. This wasn't as bad as I thought this whole process was going to be, so I am into that. So I think we are good to go. I'm probably going to just change and update and then make a new copy of my pattern based on this and then go from there and cut it out in fabric. I think the only other thing that I am going to mention is this pattern only has a 1/2 inch seam allowance, which if I was doing fitting normally, like a lot of the other fitting patterns that I've used in the past have a 1 inch seam allowance at least, especially in the side here, just so that you can take it in, take it out, play with it a little bit after the fact, after you've got it made up. So I think one of the things that I might do on this pattern is just add extra seam allowance. I'll probably double it to 1 inch. I think that'll be really nice overall just to have too, so that if I wanted to make it out of, you know, something lighter weight or wanted to make like something sheer or something, I would have enough seam allowance to make it like do French seams, do flat felled seams, anything like that. Some nicer seam finishes. 1/2 inch really doesn't give you enough space for that. So I'm gonna move on, take this bodice part, and we're gonna transfer it to paper. All right, so I've got the pieces laid out here on the fabric. So this is all on the fold here. Honestly, I have a lot of this fabric left, a lot extra. So what I might do is just go ahead and cut out the necessities, being the front, the back, the sleeve, and the pockets, and then determine how wide I can make these panels to give me like maximum swooshage. I think the other thing I'm going to do is this squiggly piece here is a piece of bias binding they're wanting you to cut for the neckline, but I think what I might actually do is draft a little bit of a facing. I know I'm kind of backtracking on that, but I think that'll be a lot easier in this shifty linen, and it will give me a nicer result, and I like them better because it's like less bulk right around the neckline. So I think that's going to be really good. Also, this is the linen that you guys voted on a poll. If you are subscribed to my channel, I did put up a poll on here to pick which linen this dress was going to be. So yeah, so if you'd like to be part of more of these polls, please do subscribe. Honestly, this looks a little bit less green than I thought it was going to, but I think it's still really lovely. It's a little bit more cream. I don't know if this lighting's doing it justice, but I think I'm still really happy with it. So we're gonna go from there. I'm gonna go ahead and cut out, and then we're gonna see how much floofage of skirt I can get out of this. So I was working on this last night and I encountered a bit of an issue. So this piece here is actually the side of the skirt, and these pieces are actually the front and back. So that actually means that there is no side seam in this skirt, which is fascinating and annoying. And so what that means is I probably can't use the inseam pockets that I've already cut out, which having no pockets is completely unacceptable. I could, of course, put on like a patch pocket, or I could have a pocket in this seam and have like a weird kangaroo pocket situation. I don't really like either of those options. So I think basically what I need to do is add a side seam. I am sort of disappointed in that because I just, you know, this pattern's for beginners and I don't think that gives you a lot of options. I could, of course, swap it for something like the Upton dress skirt or something like that, but I do kind of want to leave the gathers in the skirt in this particular case just because my fabric is so thin. I think it'll be nice to have the extra bit of coverage. So I did measure this, and the whole, like this piece and like this piece like doubled is 30 inches and 30 inches. The whole width of this fabric is actually between 59 and 60 inches, something like that. So I think what I'm gonna do is just cut the whole rectangular panel out. There's really not that much of a flare at all to the skirt, almost to the point where honestly, I think it's a bit pointless, which does make sense kind of for a beginner pattern. It's easier to hem, but on the other hand, it's like either do or don't do. You know, I really don't think it'll give you a style difference in the final product. There's a very minimal flare. It's really only a couple inches difference between the top and the bottom. This is probably making it look like it's more than it is. So yeah, so I'm just gonna cut out like 2 straight rectangles. That'll allow me to make the skirt a little bit longer, and I think that'll be really good. Then I'll be able to put in my inseam pockets like I wanted. You know, I'm mostly making this for the bodice. Like I'd mostly fit and made this for the bodice to have a nice fitting bodice. So I'm not too disappointed. Like I will be hacking on, you know, developing my own gourd skirt and adding circle skirts and things like that in the future. So that's fine. I am just a little bit disappointed though, because it's for beginners. And I think the more possibilities and ways of working with it you can do for beginners is good. So I don't know, kind of mixed thoughts on that, but yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. That'll save me about 2 and some yards worth of fabric too. So I'll probably be able to make something else out of this fabric, which is really nice. I'm gonna do that and we're gonna go from there, and we're gonna sew that up, and this is gonna be really easy now. So this should be a really fast project after 3 fittings, which is great. All right, so we're just jumping over back onto the sewing machine here, and I'm going to be speeding through this because I know you guys really enjoyed seeing that last time. So I'm starting off with that facing, and I'm just sewing my interfacing and my facing right side to right side, and then I'm flipping it actually back out around so that that glue is facing that facing, and then pressing it on that way. That allows me to turn that edge really evenly, and then I don't have to finish it. Can't remember where I picked up this trick, but it's kind of brilliant, and so it's just like part of my practice now. So now I'm just going ahead and sewing up my darts and just running right off the end there, and then I'm going to go ahead and tie those up and then pressing it really well on my ham, just giving it a lot of steam. And then I'm going to be running all the edges of this project through my serger now so that those are all finished beforehand, sort of what I'm calling the closet historian method here. Now, I find this is really good just, you know, especially on a project like this where I might want to take it apart later and adjust it. And then I'm just sewing up my shoulder seams. And now I'm going to be sewing that facing on the flat. Do this now, save yourself the struggle. This is this keeps it from stretching out the neckline and having a wobbly neckline, and the pain of sewing it when it's all done later. So would highly recommend doing that and saving yourself some pain. Now I am going ahead and understitching that facing all the way around. Again, good practice, keeps your facing from flipping out. I will be top stitching it later, but in general, if I had a larger facing than this and I wasn't planning on top stitching it, it keeps your facing from flipping out. Now I'm just going ahead and stitching on my sleeve, and I'm also doing this on the flat. This is a very Cashmerette method, and this is how they have you do it in all their instructions. This is actually a really good method too, because it allows you to take the garment in or out really easily, because you sew up, you're seeing me here sewing up the side seam and the arm all in one pass. So again, really easy construction. I think it's a really good way to do it for beginners, and like I pretty much always do my sleeves that way now, unless it's like something super fitted like a jacket. I'm going ahead and sewing on my pockets, and then I'm just understitching them here as well to keep them from poking out and flipping out. And then I'm cruising all the way around, apparently taking out my pins, cruising all the way around the edge of my pocket and all the way down to finish off the side seam of my skirt. Then we have a lift and spin, there we go. And then all the way down the side of my skirt to finish that off. Apparently I was trying to take out my pins, but was only like half successful, so do as I say, not as I do, apparently. And then I am just putting in my gathering stitches for my skirt here. So this is like a loose basting stitch. So 2 lines of that, and then I've gathered it all up. And now I'm connecting the skirt to the bodice here. So just trying to make sure that my gathers are nice and even. And just going along here, just checking my gathers all the way along. And you'll see too that I've done that, and then I've just folded my pockets over top into place. I didn't gather the pockets in as well, so that the pockets are flat still, so you're not additionally gathering like 3 layers of fabric and creating a lot of bulk in your garment. So now I'm just sewing in my zipper. I'm choosing to do a lapped zipper here, so I'm just sewing the first one pretty close to the side of the zipper tape. Apparently without pins, because I'm nuts. And then I pinned it and then finished off sewing the rest of it. The original pattern calls for an invisible zip, but I had this regular zip kicking around. And I also think for a day dress, the longevity of the garment, again, it's really good to use like a regular zipper as opposed to an invisible zip that has a tendency to break. And I also really just kind of like the vintage touch of a lap zip. I just think it's kind of nice. So it's like my preferred method, and I have a bunch of them kicking around. So here I am just going over the flap that's on the top. that goes over by like 1/8. All the way down to the edge. And then I'm gonna go, what am I doing? Oh, yeah, just finishing off the bottom of the skirt. And then I'm just going all the way around that facing to finish it off. So obviously we were just having a little bit of fun here. There was a big ice storm here in Texas last week, so I decided it'd be nice to go ahead and take advantage of it just because it went so magically with the pattern of this dress. I couldn't have planned that better. But overall, I am super happy with this dress. I think it is really cute and really comfortable and adorable. That being said, I don't think it is quite my perfect bodice block yet. It is really darn close though. Obviously it fits me far better than anything off the rack would, but there are a couple of tweaks I would like to make. You can see there, just as I move my shoulders around, that it is lifting ever so slightly at the neckline, kind of pointing towards the shoulders. I definitely should have done some more mock-ups with the sleeves in place just to see what that did, because I think they are just pulling it a little bit. I think I either need some more space in either the sleeve head itself or the sleeve, but that is fairly easily remedied, as well as the neckline is a little bit wide on me, but I think that's more of a personal preference thing than anything else, and again, very easy fix. The other thing that I would have liked to have done is maybe add a waist stay or something like that to this dress, because it does have a tendency to grow on me as I wear it, but that's more of a factor of it being linen than anything else. So, would I recommend this book? 100%. I think with the patterns in here, with the 5 patterns alone, it is worth the cost of admission. I did pay full price for this book, but there are plenty of other resources available where you can get it for less than that, including a lot of local libraries, so I would check into that. But overall, I think it is well worth it. If I had a plus size seamstress in my life who was just starting out, I would 100% recommend this book. Also, if you were learning into getting into fitting, this has a lot of great fitting adjustments and will really walk you through step by step how to do a whole bunch of full bust adjustments, which is also really great. It also uses really body neutral language, which is really nice. It's a nice, positive, modern update to see. So I'm looking forward to making a lot more patterns from this book. And if you'd like to see any of the other ones, please leave me a comment down below and tell me which ones you'd like to see, or if there's another Cashmerette pattern you'd love to see, because honestly I own most of them, so please let me know. So thank you guys for sticking around. If you would like more from me, I have started live streaming on Sunday nights. If you would like to come sew with me, please leave a like down below if you'd like to support my channel, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye guys! It's fine, right? We can edit now. My brain is gone.